And then after the concert, I just felt satisfied. Like I had just finished a really good meal. Like this was everything I wanted it to be and more. Like it's just chef kiss. This is perfect.
I literally was like looking at trash cans like, Taylor.
I'm like picturing Ashley like head first in a trash can going, Taylor, are you in there?
Welcome to Therate. This is a very special episode of Therate podcast where we get to have a Swiftie chat. We are going to be talking about our ERAS tour experiences. Katie, do you want to introduce our guests?
Yes, Ashley, I would love to. So today we have my friends Mora and Brittany. Mora, I have the pleasure of soon to be related to, engaged to my brother, and Brittany, an OG friend from many years ago. So introduce yourself and tell us what made you a Swiftie.
Yeah, my name's Mora. I've been a Swiftie since middle school. So I was an OG Taylor fan, listened to her first album, and then I think Fearless came out when I was in high school. So just been a Taylor Swift fan from the beginning and never looked back.
My Swiftie experience is a little different just because I was a fan when she started with Debut and Fearless, and then Speak Now came out and it didn't speak to me, unfortunately. So I took a really long break and I didn't start to love her again until she released Folklore and Evermore for the pandemic. And then I sat there going, how did I miss Reputation? What was wrong with me? Why didn't I like this stuff? And so we're here again, and I am dedicated, and I feel bad about my break. But sometimes you just have to take a break, right?
We will normalize those
Absolutely.
breaks. Absolutely. Maura, I would love to hear from you. What was kind of your experience going to the Eras tour? You guys went to Indianapolis a couple last weekend. So I'd love to hear like what were your emotions like before, during, and after?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, it was just a really fun day. So, I mean, the anticipation was kind of building throughout the day. So I think we were all pretty chill to start, but then as it got closer, you can kind of feel the anticipation and excitement building. And then that clock comes up, and I think you kind of feel the whole stadium start to feel that anticipation too. And then it's basically just 3.5 hours of singing your lungs out. So hard to beat that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Did you guys get ready together? I know I'm going rogue here a little bit, but what did your day look like before? Can I ask that? Okay,
Yeah,
and then
they did
we'll
more prep than I did, so that's a good question for Katie and Brittany.
okay.
Katie and
If
I
if
got
either of them will
ready
say it. Yeah.
together.
Yes, yes, we got ready because getting ready is a whole process for me. I'm not gonna lie. So, yeah, it was like a couple hours. Like take a shower early in the day, let the hair dry, and then go in with like curling iron. And Brittany had the great idea to buy those sparkles that Taylor was seen wearing at the Chiefs game. That you just like put on like the ridge of your nose and on your cheeks. So we each did a strip of like sparkles on our face, which was super fun and just a nice little ode to Taylor. So thank you, Brittany, for that.
They were so cute.
They were very cute.
That's so fun. Katie, what was your emotional journey before, during, and after the concert?
Very excited um throughout the day and the days leading up to it. But also, if I'm being honest, some anxiety. And for those who know me, no one's surprised. But I think there's a lot of details to coordinate, right? There's like the trip down and the driving and then the housing and food and like all of like, the parking and getting in. And I was super concerned about potential traffic or an accident or something like that with all the additional like traffic in the city. So I was a little bit worried about getting there early. Maura and Brittany stayed so calm, cool, collected. They really helped me navigate that, graciously agreed to leave a little bit earlier. Um, so yeah, I think that was some of the anxiety, but I would say that during the concert, I just felt a sense of awe. Like it's just I've never been to a concert of that scale before, and just the bigness of everything, this amount of people. Um, and then when the actual concert started, I would say just like I felt very present, just like in the moment, like all I could focus on was the music and seeing Taylor. Um and then after the concert, I just felt satisfied. Like I had just finished a really good meal. Like this was everything I wanted it to be and more. Like it's just chef kiss, this is perfect. And then, the post-concert blues set in not too long after.
Yeah. Yeah, those post-concert blues are real. Oh, what about you, Brittany?
Katie may say I wasn't acting anxious or that I was helpful, but I was also anxious beforehand because there's just, like she said, logistics to work out. And I I wasn't gonna feel excited until I was actually in the seats. And I kind of knew that, but that was the case. Like I could see, Katie and Maura getting a little bit more excited as we got closer and closer. And I was like, I gotta be in those seats. I don't feel it yet. But it was so fun to like walk into the stadium with all the other Swifties and to see everybody else's excitement and to start to get excited myself. So, I think one of the things I wrote down was like one of the things I was feeling beforehand was need caffeine. Like I need caffeine to get me through this.
Yeah.
Um, during, I think I was so overwhelmed in like a good way and a bad way because it was just so much. Like Katie said too, I've never been to a concert of this scale, but this past summer I was at a soccer game in Chiefs Stadium and it had probably more than 69,000 people there. So like I was experiencing that this summer, but a soccer game is so different from Taylor Swift because you have all the costumes and like everyone is singing and just the vibes were so good. Everyone was just so engaged and it was really cool to experience that. But it was very overwhelming to experience as well.
Mhm.
And then after, I just feel like I was like, wait, what just happened? Like, was I really there? I have videos on my phone, but I don't remember some of these sets. Like, what in the world just happened?
Yeah, like the blackout memory.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Totally.
That's awesome. I feel like we need a moment to share that you were in Chiefs Stadium too. I mean, that's not about Taylor, but that feels very tangential. Tangential.
Yeah,
That's
that was
super
in
cool.
July.
Okay, nice. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Anything, Katie, that you would have changed about your experience?
In terms of the concert and performance, no. I yeah, I just the concert itself was just absolutely phenomenal. So I can't think of anything along those lines that I would have changed. I think the only thing that I would change personally for myself was like the outfit I had picked out was quite warm, which I had planned ahead because I was like, okay, this concert's in November. It's probably going to be cooler. We're walking, a couple city blocks from our parking to the stadium. But once we were in the stadium, it was so hot. Like you could tell they had the AC on, obviously, with so many people, but like it was not enough for me. So absolutely would have picked out a cooler an outfit that would have kept me cooler for that many hours of singing and dancing and being that closely packed in with other bodies.
Okay, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. What about you, Maura? Anything you would have changed?
I think like Katie said, the concert itself, I'm not sure what I would have changed. Of course, to be greedy, I probably would have picked like my top two surprise songs if I was going to change something. But the ones we got were really good, so that it feels greedy to say that. But yeah, otherwise, it was a very smooth experience getting there, being at the concert, getting out. So nothing big I would change for
Okay. Yeah, we definitely need to talk about the surprise songs. That moment is coming, but I can't wait to talk to you guys about
sure.
that. What about you, Brittany? Anything you would have changed?
I wanted something to go wrong. Indie night one had something go wrong. Indie night two had something go wrong. And you can point to those nights and be like, oh, I was there that night because that thing happened. And it went so smooth. And I was like, oh, but I just want something to go wrong so that I could be like, I was at that one.
Yeah.
And it didn't.
Yeah, you wanted the Errors tour.
Yes, I did.
Well, I'm so glad that you guys had a good experience. What was the moment like when you saw Taylor for the first time in the concert, Brittany?
She's here. I'm in the same like area as Taylor Swift. What?
Mm-hmm.
Was this
Mm-hmm.
your first time seeing her live?
Yes, it was.
Okay, what about you, Maura?
Yep, it was my first time seeing her
Yeah.
live too, so kind of that same feeling of, wow, we're in the same building.
Okay. Yeah, what about you, Katie?
She's real. As like ridiculous as that sounds, to only have an interaction with a person digitally, like through recorded music, through a screen, and then to see them in real person, there was something about this flesh and blood experience that was so different. And I think like emotionally, like I cried. Like when the countdown clock came on and then that intro music, that just for some reason gets me in my feels every single time. Like I just feel like I could tear up. Like, yeah, and I did, and I did. And I think that it just felt in that moment, I felt a lot of like permission and connectedness to my emotions because I knew that I was collectively experiencing this with a lot of other people who I imagine felt very similarly to me in that moment. And that was really special.
Yeah. That's a very Katie answer. I love that. It's amazing. It really is a moment. I was watching that intro again. Okay, so full disclosure, I watched the live stream of the concert that you guys were at. And so I was
So
on the
you were there
grainy
too.
live stream just to experience it with you guys. But yeah, it's such a moment when she pops up. Yeah, especially for you guys to be there for seeing her for the first time too. That's
Hmm.
amazing. Were there any memorable outfits that you saw?
I actually saw and took a picture with a guy who had on a traffic light costume. The the back of his costume said, I asked the traffic lights, will it be all right? And then each light had a word on it. So the green said I, or whatever order they're in, it said I don't know. I was like, this is so clever.
That's amazing.
And for our listeners who maybe don't know, that's reference to the Great War, which is a song. Wait, isn't that from the Great
Or
War? No,
DNA
okay.
Street, right?
No, it's Death
Or
by a Thousand Cuts.
Death
Death
by a
by a
Thousand
Thousand
Cuts.
That's
Cuts. Oh,
right.
I stand corrected. I was thinking the Great War. Okay. Thank you, Brittany. I should have let you fill that in.
What about you, Maura? Were there any outfits that stood out to you?
Um, it's hard for me to think of any specifically, but as we were driving to the concert, there's obviously a lot of people out walking, so it was like, oh, they're obviously going to the concert. They're probably not going. Oh, they're definitely going. So it was like you could really tell who was going and who wasn't going just based on their outfits alone, for sure.
Hmm.
That makes a lot of sense. Anything that stood out to you, Katie?
Uh, I think that I don't know if there's like one particular outfit that stood out to me, but more just how everybody was dressed up for the experience. Like every single person had something that was like, oh, you're clearly here for Taylor Swift. Even if it's like a t-shirt like representing, Taylor's version or a song, to some pretty elaborate outfits. Like the number of outfits I saw that were like her Reputation outfit, which in my opinion is one of the most complex costumes to replicate, but so many people had. And I was like, the level of commitment you have to do that was like pretty astonishing. So,
Yeah.
yeah, like Maura said, like you could just tell everybody had made an effort into thinking like, how am I going to show up, to this concert experience, which was like pretty cool. So, yeah, I don't know that there was like one in particular that like stood out to me so much as the collective.
Yeah, just the group in general. That makes a lot of sense. It is amazing how much time people put into creating and sewing, and it's very impressive.
Hmm.
Um, so I know that some of the cities that she's been visiting have done some cool like community things. Maura, did you notice anything about Indianapolis or like the city that kind of embraced Taylor?
Yeah, so they had like completely renamed all their streets after Taylor Swift songs. So I think our parking garage was on Cornelia Street, and then they had like maps everywhere to kind of detail which streets were renamed to what. Um, And then I don't know if people saw a picture, but there's like a huge Taylor Swift, I don't even know, mural, I guess, on one of the side of one of their buildings. So that you could definitely tell they were happy to have Taylor in town, I think.
That is so cool. I love that. What about you, Katie? I think you said that there were some events or things that you saw.
Yeah, I mean, like there were, I think, so many like bars, coffee shops, stores were doing pop-ups or like theming their products. We had gone out to dinner at like a local like winery that had, they're famous for like wine slushies, and so they had like Bad Blood and like a reputation like wine slushy drink, which is nice. So that's definitely, you could just tell people were like welcoming of like the Swifties, which was really cool.
That's awesome. Yeah, did you notice anything different, Brittany?
Well, I thought it was really cool because where we were staying was like 30 minutes outside of Indianapolis. So that winery was like not even in downtown, and they were like doing slushies themed for Taylor Swift. They had the Eras tour movie on the TV in the like winery area. I was like, okay, everybody, I see you. Everyone's like celebrating Taylor being here and capitalizing on it.
Mhm.
And then I had a friend at work who she was like, oh, one of my friends lives in Indianapolis. She was like really excited to see all the Taylor Swift stuff. She doesn't like Taylor Swift, so she didn't want to go out, but she was like excited for what it was doing for the city. And I was like,
Mhm.
that's a good response, I think.
Yeah, like economically.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. And if I can just add like one comment here, I had mentioned this to Brittany and Maura when we were driving out of the concert, but I had expected the traffic in and out to be a nightmare. I like just logistically, I was like, this is just going to be the worst case scenario because, that's just how my mind works sometimes. And it wasn't. It was so smooth. Like I could just tell that the city planners and event planners had did a superb job. So shout out to the Indy city employees who coordinated that because it was a really smooth experience. I was
Mhm.
like surprised. It was not nearly as long as I was gonna expecting. Like, of course, it took time to get out of the city, but like it really wasn't as bad as what it could have been.
Mhm.
That's
For sure.
impressive. Yeah, there's so many people to shuffle through, so that is actually, yeah, a feat. Yeah, any other thoughts about the community that you guys noticed, or any more like, I don't know, anything that you noticed in general with Swifties, memorable interactions with other people?
So I was in the bathroom and I had ordered a drink, and they have to open your drink for you before they give it to you. So I'm like, you can set it on the toilet paper thing, that's fine. But I'm washing my hands, like trying to dry my hands after washing them. And I'm like, this is really hard to do with the paper towel in one hand and a drink in the other. And this girl was just like, "Oh, I'm done. I'll hold it for you so you can." And like, so she did that for me, and then we like went out and traded bracelets, and it was just so nice. It was like everyone was a girl's girl in that building, and I was like, this is so wonderful to experience.
Hmm.
That's so sweet. Yeah, any other like memorable interactions with people that you guys were around?
We had quite a few younger girls come up to us, like probably like elementary, middle school age, who would like tap like on our shoulders or say like "excuse me" and like ask to trade bracelets, which I would say that like personally I was approached more by younger fans than older fans.
Mhm.
And I just like love that with my whole heart because like I came very prepared in the friendship bracelet making department. Like I had so much fun making bracelets. It just turned into like a little hobby of mine. So I was very excited to trade them. And then I was like, oh, it's just the little girls who want to trade. So I was like trying to like find people to like trade bracelets with. Um, and I would say that another like memorable experience, I don't know how much like interaction necessarily, but like I just saw like a wide variety of ages. Like there was everything from like you know, obvious elementary looking age children up to like women who could have been my grandmother. And just seeing the diversity of age that like Taylor can speak to, that kind of created this community was like really, really special. And so I loved watching like, oh, like that's a grandma, that's like a mom, that's the granddaughter, like seeing the multi-generational aspect and observing that was really special. And then instead of like overhearing clips of conversations as you're walking by, was really a unique experience. So I'll echo what Brittany said about the girls, um, and then just adding that intergenerational component.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's so cool. What about you, Maura? Anything that you noticed community-wise?
Um, I think one thing that we kind of talked about while we were there that was interesting is as we were walking to the stadium, we probably walked past 100 people that had signs saying like, "I will do anything for a Taylor Swift ticket." Like, I flew from Texas, I just need a ticket, and there were a ton of them. So that was really interesting to see. A lot of people were taking a chance on trying to get a ticket. So not sure how many of them were successful, but that was definitely an interesting aspect, I think, of being at one of her last shows. In the last US show, people were really desperate to get in.
That's a good point. I didn't think about that aspect, that this was her last show in the US. Did you guys notice anything that might have been different just because of that? That's a really good point.
I was
I
hoping for something to be different, like maybe we'll get an announcement or something crazy will happen, but I feel like it didn't. So
No, I didn't think anything different really happened. I mean, like I said, I wanted something different to happen, and it was just like a really smooth show. So I was like, oh,
mhm.
well,
hmm
thanks. Thanks. It
Yeah.
was really good though.
Were you guys
Yes.
clowning for a rep announcement?
Always.
Always and no.
Yeah, I'll echo that. Like my heart is always there. I'm always, but I think
Mhm.
like I knew it wasn't gonna happen, but like as a part of me always rooting for it like 100%. But yeah, I did kind of wonder if something special would happen on her last US show.
Hmm.
And I maybe like a small sliver like of disappointment that there wasn't something like some kind of shout out to this being like the last um US show, but at the same time, like no complaints, just like oh, you could have made me feel even more special if you had said that I was at your last US show, which is so ridiculous to say out loud, but it's a thought that I had.
We're here for all your thoughts, Katie. Thanks for sharing.
And my feelings. You're the best.
Well, let's shift to just the music in general. Did you guys have a favorite set performance? We can start with you, Katie.
Ooh, I have thought a lot about this question. So is there a particular one that I enjoyed? All of them, but I would say that like TTPD and Rep were two that like just I think when I was going full feral, it was during those two sets.
That's amazing. Yeah, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. How about you, Brittany?
So when I found out that I was going to be going to this show, I purposefully did not watch any content around TTPD because I was like, I have seen so much of the Eras tour already. I feel like it's not going to be good. It's not going to be special because I'll have already seen it all. I just know what's going to happen. And so that made me feel like, oh, this is going to be even more exciting because I don't know what to expect with this specific album. But I have to say, that wasn't my favorite one. Obviously, I loved everything, but when I was thinking about this question, I was like, actually, I think it's Midnights. And that's because every Midnight song involves the whole crew. The dancers are on the stage with her for all the Midnight songs. And I enjoyed that so much. I love seeing all of that production. I think it's so much cooler to see all of the choreography and then see how it works with the song.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah, it's really a moment with the whole crew up there. That makes a lot of sense. What about you, Maura?
Yeah, I would definitely echo those for sure. I think probably like an underrated one for me was probably Fearless, just because of the songs that she sang. I feel like those are like three songs of hers that I've been screaming in my car for like 15 years. So to get to sing
Mhm.
those songs with like 70,000 other people, I think was just super fun. But yeah, definitely the ones they mentioned, Midnight's Rap, TTPD,
Mhm.
all were great as well.
Oh, that's awesome. Do you guys have a go-to album that you're listening to right now?
I'm always listening to Reputation. Um,
You are a rep girly through and through.
But I also am listening to TTPD a lot as well. It's just so good. There's so much on there that I'm like, oh, it just itches my brain just right, the way she's singing. And I don't know, her voice in this register is what I love the most. Like Reputation is still, she hasn't redone it, so it's not in her like natural register yet. It's still the old version, which I love to death, but it's like you can tell a difference between the two for sure.
Mhm.
Hmm.
Yeah, I feel like she's
Yeah.
really evolved as an artist in a lot of ways. And I think the freedom of like creating her own music is doing something to even how she performs it. But oh, I could talk about that forever. So, Maura, do you have any albums that you're listening to consistently?
Probably my most played album right now is TTPD. When I listen to Taylor, I don't usually just pick an album and like listen to it all the way through. Like I have a Taylor Swift playlist, I'll just like shuffle. So I tend to listen to her music more like randomly than just like listen to a whole album all right in a row. But if I was gonna pick one, it would be TTPD for sure.
Okay. I've done the shuffle risk before, and the wide range of emotions I experience when I'm
Very
listening
true.
to shuffle.
Very
I'm
true.
either
Quite the
like
roller
partying
coaster.
or sobbing, and it's too
Mhm.
much sometimes. So much respect to you.
Yeah,
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 that's
that's
very
so
true.
funny because that is such a good point, Ashley. Because I was thinking the same thing. I was like, that's a bold strategy, Maura.
What can I say?
What's your go-to right now, Katie?
TTPD has like not stopped being my number one listen since it came out. I just, to borrow Brittany's phrase, it itches my brain just right. Like there is so many layers to that album and to like the lyrics that like I just have not gotten tired of that. Like there always feels like there's like a little component or a new appreciation for a particular song. Um, but I would say, yeah, TTPD, rep, and then I just love to throw in Red as well. That's another like really good album as well. So, yeah, those are probably three that I kind of come back to. Okay, I'm gonna break the rules. Also, Evermore, because as soon as the weather starts getting cold, Evermore starts coming on. Like as soon as I see like a leaf that is turning like red or orange, I'm like, I'm for Evermore.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, Brittany, can you tell us what surprise songs Taylor did for your concert?
So the guitar surprise songs were Cornelia Street into the Bolter. And then the piano was Death by a Thousand Cuts into the Great War.
Okay. So, my follow-up question is, do you guys feel like there were any meanings behind those mashups? I'm laughing because I can think of one, but I want to hear from you guys. Any thoughts on why she mashed those particular songs up?
Katie?
I'm open to hearing your theory, Ashley. If you have one, I'd be
Yeah,
curious.
yeah. Ashley,
I
how
don't
about
really
you
have
start us
any.
out?
Yeah, let me give you my interpretation of your experience. So with Cornelia Street going into the Bolter, I feel like that's kind of her telling the story of Joe, and like this is what she kind of experienced from that relationship. What are your thoughts on that?
I agree. I don't know why she did it on Indie Night 3. Like, why are we ending the US tour like with that?
Yeah,
But
that's
I do
fair.
agree with that synopsis.
Yeah, I'd be curious about that too. Like, was there something about the timing, or maybe something happened for her that brought that to mind? I don't know. So that's my theory. What about you guys? Did you think of anything for either of those mashups?
I didn't think of it. I saw somebody speculating on the internet about the Death by a Thousand Cuts in the Great War. I mean, this was 2 days before the election.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
it seems maybe a little apropos to say that.
Yeah. I'm with Brittany. I also saw that take that I did not think of that at the moment, but like looking back, I could see maybe there being like a little bit of a message there. And like, I mean, Taylor does communicate through her songs and through her mashups, as we've learned throughout the tour. So like I could see that being possible, but it wasn't a thought that I had in the moment listening.
Hmm. Did you guys have any surprise songs you were hoping for? Were you severely disappointed? Were you thrilled? I think, Maura, you said you were going into it hoping for a specific one.
I don't know if I was hoping for specific ones necessarily. I definitely had ones that I would have wanted, but I don't think I let myself like hope for them because I didn't want to be like disappointed when it probably wouldn't be those because the odds aren't really in your favor. But definitely, if I had to pick what my top ones would be, it'd probably be like Exile, You're on Your Own, Kid. Just a couple of those. But I know she's already played those a bunch of times. But yeah, so I wasn't disappointed with the ones that we got. Like I said, it wouldn't have been my top choice, but I didn't walk out of there like, oh my goodness, I can't believe those are the ones we got.
Mm-hmm.
I was pretty bummed with like when she went into the bolter, I was like, what song is this? Because yes, I like TTPD, but that song does not resonate with me as much as some other ones do. And so I kind of skip it, even though that's horrible to say, but like it's just not on my list. So
That's
like,
okay.
wait, what are we listening to now? Like I know Cornelia Street, but what is this one?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. I mean, everybody's got a skip list, right? There's just every song is going to appeal to a different population and for different reasons. So, no, it's not bad to say. Um, I would say that I really like The Bolter. I think it's a fun song and I enjoy the melody. And so I kind of like bop out to it when it comes on. But I will say I don't understand the message of The Bolter. I just think it's a fun song to sing. So that I will throw that out there. So I will say, like, between the guitar set and the piano set, I preferred the piano. I think the Death by a Thousand Cuts and the Great War. I mean, I love the Great War. I remember even a conversation you and I had, Ashleigh, when Midnights came out, and I was like, I really like the Great War. I feel like this is an underrated song. I'm so here for it. So I really enjoyed hearing that. I'm with Maura. Would I have like selected these songs? Probably if I had to like pick my top, probably no. But did I enjoy them? Like, absolutely. Like, it's always going to be an A-list experience when Taylor is singing.
Yeah, definitely. That makes a lot of sense. Well, you guys, thanks so much for being part of this with us. Is there anything else you want to share about your Eras Tour experience?
I'm so grateful to have had it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, speaking of the Great War, I know that it was like intense to get tickets. So I'm glad you guys
Yes.
all got to go.
Yes. Yes, I will echo that. We almost weren't able to get tickets to this show. So for any listener who's like, I didn't get to go or I barely went, we feel you because it didn't work out several times and then it did work out. So I really get that. But yeah, just a lot of gratitude. And I think special gratitude as somebody who's, seen Taylor one time live at the Eras Tour to get to experience a taste of each era felt immeasurably special to me. So I think just overwhelming gratitude for the experience and unforgettable memory. Welcome. You're listening to Therate. My name is Katie, and I will be hosting a special episode where we are discussing the Eras Tour experience that my co-host Ashleigh and our special guest Jen experienced. So Ashleigh, if you could please introduce yourself, and then Jen, if you could follow with an introduction of yourself as well.
So I'm Ashleigh, and this is Jen. Jen is my sister-in-law. There's a lot that I could say about Jen, but right now I will say that when I was dating my husband, he said, you have to make sure that you get along with my sister. No pressure. So I don't know if you've ever heard this story, Jen, but one of the things that I remember you and I bonded about early on was Taylor. And ever since then, I feel like that's been a really good bonding point for us. So this is Jen, my sister-in-law, but also friend, and she was my bridesmaid and one of my biggest supporters in life. So I'm going to stop because I'm going to get emotional. So these two lovely women who are with me on this podcast helped me plan the best 30th birthday party. Every detail was planned out. There were so many fun things. So this is also Ashleigh's 30th birthday party planning committee that was Taylor Swift themed. So thank you again publicly for all the work that you guys did on that party.
That was a blast.
It was so fun.
It was the most fun I've ever had planning or attending a birthday party, to be honest. It was just the highest pleasure and privilege.
It was
I agree.
great. So, all right, Jen, I'll let you say anything that you want to share about your Swiftyhood.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me on the show. I think I became a Swiftie because one of my friends in maybe like fifth grade had Taylor's first couple CDs, and she lent them to me over the weekend, and I just popped them in and had them on replay, and I have never stopped listening since. And she just releases the music right when I needed it. So I just love her, and I have been able to go to 2 tours with Ashleigh, and it has been so fun.
Can you please share the 2 concert experiences you had of Taylor's?
Yeah, so we went to the Rep tour in Indy, and then we went to the ERAS tour in Chicago.
So,
Fantastic.
can I add just to contrast the difference between the Rep tour and the Eras tour? Jen was doing my hair, and I was like, hey, did you know that Taylor Swift is going to be in town in like a couple of months? And we just kind of like casually were like, oh, that would be super fun. Let's see if there are any tickets. And we bought tickets long after they were, able to be purchased. And they were under $100 each.
Mhm.
And contrast that with the absolute chaos that the Eras tour was. I just feel like that needed a moment. It was not really anything that we planned for. It was just kind of like, hey, spur of the moment, let's see Taylor in a couple of months. And so I just think that that's hilarious that there's such a big difference between those two experiences.
Yes, it speaks so much to how Taylor has evolved as an artist, how her fandom has evolved, the anticipation and experience of her concerts. Like, yes, that when you shared that story with me the first time, it blew my mind because I have only seen Taylor one time, and that's at the Eras Tour concert. And as all of our listeners probably know, getting tickets to any of her shows has been the Great War.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and dive in with our questions. So the first will kind of focus on like overall experience of the concert. And because you've been to 2 of her shows, please feel free to like intermix, compare, contrast with Reputation. I think a lot of our listeners would really enjoy hearing that. So, Jen, if we can start with you, what were your emotions before, during, and after the concert? Maybe we'll start with the Eras tour, and then you can sprinkle in some rep if you'd like.
Sure. So before the concert, I believe both times we got ready together, which was fun. So we were pumped. There was a lot of adrenaline going on. And for the Eras tour, we had already spent some money on tickets, so we didn't really want to spend money on parking. So we didn't. Instead, we had someone drop us off, and turns out the line to get to where even the people were was too much. So we just got off on the side of the highway, and we climbed over the guardrail and scratched ourselves up a little bit. I have a scar. So I have a scar from the Eras tour. I didn't even need to get a tattoo because I have the scar. It's been great. Yeah. Um, and then, so it was a little chaotic, getting over the guardrail, climbing down the grassy hill, finding all the Swifties, and then getting into the actual field. Because, I mean, the amount of people, I don't think people can grasp unless they've been to it. There's just so many people. So,
Yeah.
and then to match the energy of everyone else in the room of just like everyone is pumped. It's so exciting. And she is so good at building up the expectation and the excitement before she gets on stage. Like, because I mean, she's got the openers and they're trying to pump you up, but then like she's got a countdown and like, oof, the energy, it's just like palpable. Like it's everywhere. So then, yeah, during
Yeah.
the concert, I would say that I mean, it was a long one, right? It's like 3 hours, and never did we sit down. Never did we lose our, well, Ashleigh might have lost her voice, but she didn't lose her excitement behind that voice. Uh, and then afterwards, I feel like there was still a lot of adrenaline. There was some tiredness. There was some, how do we get home? Because we didn't park a car here, that kind of thing. But it all worked out, and then we crashed into bed after that.
Wow. Wow. Well, let no one question your love and like just commitment to Taylor that you literally have a scar from attending her concert and you're still giving the concert experience a 10 out of 10. Like that's that says something, folks, at least to
Worth
me.
it.
Um, that's wild. I didn't know you actually had a scar from that. And just so our listeners can grasp the size, can you tell us, do you know how many people were at that stadium in Chicago?
I
I
think it
don't
was
actually.
like 70,000.
Yeah.
A lot.
Wow. Wow. That is hard to wrap your mind around that number of people. Wow.
Hmm.
Okay. So Ashleigh, what were your emotions before, during, and after the concert?
Yeah. So the interesting thing about the Eras tour timing was I had come back to the US from Europe a couple of days before. And so I was pretty jet lagged. I remember Jen was really nervous that I was going to like lose my adrenaline during the concert because of the jet lag factor. And your family was so kind in providing me a lot of caffeine for the weekend. But yeah, so I was definitely excited. You can't bring me down from seeing Taylor. So definitely pumped, and just I think the excitement just kind of grew over time until we saw Taylor. So like the moment that we got dropped off and we're running down the grassy hill, and then seeing all the people, because that there were a ton of tailgaters. I don't know if you had that experience, Katie, but there were people who were
No.
like in the parking lots nearby just to like tailgate and listen from afar because our venue was outside. And
Hmm.
so I mean, there were tons of people just kind of there too.
Yeah.
So I just remember thinking like I found my people. Like all of these people are dressed to the nines for Taylor. We all get the jokes. Like we're all in. People were playing her music, walking up. It was still kind of a walk for us to get to the stadium. So it was just like vibes all the way there. It was so fun.
All the vibes. Yes. No, you make a really great point. So a lot of people tailgate the Eras Tour shows. That was actually not permitted at Indy. So they specifically like did not allow that. I don't know how they controlled that, but there were not large groups of people outside that were there to listen to the music. Also, Chicago, like you said, is an open stadium, whereas Indianapolis, my experience was closed dome. So
Mhm.
I don't know how that affected the sound traveling outside as well. But
Yeah. And I think with security too, after the threats that were made in Vienna, I think that was when it changed. There was definitely a shift in
mhm,
tailgating after that too. Um,
yeah.
yeah. Yeah, it's kind of interesting to think about how the tour has evolved because Jen and I went to Chicago and that was a year and a half ago. So TTPD wasn't out. She had not released Speak Now, Taylor's version yet when we went.
Hmm.
So it's kind of weird to think back to what things were like. She wasn't doing mashups for surprise songs. So yeah, it's just kind of
Yeah.
interesting to see how the tour has changed over time.
Yeah. And she wasn't performing Long Live because that was
Hmm.
only added after she re-released Speak Now. So yeah. Well, that is a good segue into our next question. Is there anything that you would maybe change about the experience? Ashleigh, if you want to start us off, and then we'll go to you, Jen.
Yeah, so I think there's a couple of things that come to mind, nothing major because it's amazing. It's so cool. One of the things is I wore a dress and I didn't think about how our venue is outside and we were in Chicago near Lake Michigan. So I got really cold and I took a break and went to see like how much the merch was, and I just could not justify spending that money. And so I just kind of like suffered once the sun went down. So that was one thing that I wish I had kind of thought through a little bit more. And then Jen, I don't know if you recall this, but we went on like a hunt for those disco ball cups.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember that?
I do, yeah.
Did we ever find them? I don't remember if we actually were successful.
No, we did
Okay.
not.
All right, so if you can fill in for me and our listeners, what is a disco ball cup?
Did you not have them, Katie? In
I
Indy?
a lit I literally don't know what you're talking about. Maybe we
I
did, but
think
like I
that
don't.
was a Soldier Field thing.
Oh,
I
really?
think that was
Oh,
just, yeah,
okay.
the venue came up with that, I believe.
Okay. So they had like Taylor Swift themed drinks, and they had these like colorful disco ball looking cups that they were served in.
Mhm.
And we probably looked for those things for like 25, 30 minutes, went to different places, and people kept telling us to go to different places. I don't regret that. I just think it's like a funny part of it that like wasn't necessary.
True.
Um, but yeah, I think those are the only things that come to mind when I think of things that could have changed.
Mhm.
But overall, it was just an incredible experience.
Yeah, wow, sounds like it. Jen, what about for you? Anything you would potentially change?
I was also cold. I had the thinnest little sweater that I put on midway through, and then I just let the alcohol warm me up a little bit.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear that.
Oh yeah. Um, Besides that, so I wasn't the biggest fan of the openers, which actually turned out okay because that gave us time to kind of go through the whole venue. We went around like the whole of Soldier Field, which is like kind of a long walk.
Hmm.
But on the way we got to meet people and like trade bracelets and go into every bar to ask them if they had things. And yeah, so I don't think that I'd necessarily change that, but if I wanted to be out listening to the openers, I wasn't the hugest fan of ours. So that's okay.
Yeah, yeah,
We weren't there
okay.
for that anyway.
Yeah, exactly. And it provided a different opportunity for you as well. So it sounds like it was still a win. Yeah.
Right.
So if we can kind of dive into the actual moment that you saw Taylor in person, Jen, can you speak to what that experience was like for you?
Yeah. So I think just because of the crowd around you, the sound around you, the screens everywhere, the timer ticking down, the time you already spent watching the openers and waiting for Taylor, man, the moment that she came into the stage, it was just magical, right? Like, and everyone's screaming at the top of their lungs, and it is something else.
Oh
It's
yeah.
really something.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Ashley, anything you would add?
I think because the Eras tour was the second time that we saw her. I think I'm going to talk about Rep in this one. Because like I remember just trying to remind myself like this person who has meant so much to you and like has written the soundtrack basically to your life is so many feet away from you. Like I just kept trying to remind myself, like, that's Taylor. This is not a screen. This is not a movie. That's her. She's right there. And I tried to like really remind myself to stay in that moment of like, you're only going to be in the same place as her for a certain amount of time. And so just like really
Hmm.
trying to take it in. And the same is true at the Eras tour as well. But I feel like there's something really special about that first time seeing her too it's unforgettable. The way at the Eras tour though, the way that she like comes out, there is nothing like that. I I get emotional when I watch that video. I actually have a really cute video where I like am watching showing like the what are those called? The peacock things? I don't know. The colorful plumes.
Oh, yes, that like basically like those like fabric
Yes.
pieces that like her dancers wear on their backs, and then they cover her.
Hmm.
It almost reminds me of like a petal, like a flower
Yeah,
petal.
yeah, the pedal things. I have a video of those, and then I like cut to Jen and the excitement that I see in her face. Like it's the cutest thing. And then I like go back and Taylor's there, and it's like, and that song, like I know I said this to you personally, Katie, too, but like I would love a, a recording or something that I can go back to of that song, and then every surprise song mashup I can find. Like
Hmm.
I just, yeah,
Yeah.
that beginning song, there's nothing like it, where she's like just talking about all of her different eras, and it's
Hmm.
so emotional.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, doesn't that just speak to like how exceptionally gifted Taylor is at making you feel so special and so in the in? Like with a crowd of 70,000 people and you feel this like intimate connection with her as an artist, that's astonishing.
Hmm. Yeah, it is.
So, as our listeners know, there's a whole culture around, wearing outfits and dressing up for her concerts. Ashleigh, were there any like memorable outfits that you saw, any costumes, or maybe something that even Taylor wore that like, because we've been following her outfit changes throughout the tour. So, yeah, anything that you can remember from either concert?
I Since it was a little while now, I don't remember any specific outfits. But I do remember thinking these are some committed people. Like this is I think there was one person who was dressed up as a crumpled piece of paper. Can you verify that, Jen? Was there somebody?
Yeah, I was trying to remember what it was, but that's what it was. Yeah.
Hmm.
There's like some deep
But
cut like references when people dress up. So I think I just felt connected because of those, you know, yeah, deep cut things.
Yes, yes. Yeah, those are really committed listeners that like will pull a specific like word or phrase from a specific song on a specific album, be like, that's what I'm doing.
Yeah, which for anybody who's maybe listening to this who doesn't know that reference, that's a reference to her song All Too Well. Um, just want to throw that in there. Did you
Mhm.
remember any, Jen?
no, what I was gonna say is just the amount of sparkle in the place. Unbelievable. Just everyone was just sparkly. And as I was watching the tour again in the theater, it reminded me I was just waiting for one of her outfits that wasn't just complete sparkle, and I was not disappointed. There was never an outfit that wasn't just like 100% sparkle, top to bottom. Even the ones that were like folklore, like just glowy, still all the sparkle. Love that for her.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes. So let's maybe talk a little bit about the larger environment that these concert experiences took place in. So Ashley, maybe you can start us out. Were there any thoughts or feelings around how Chicago, well, I guess Indy too, because that's where the rep tour occurred, how the city embraced Taylor?
So I don't know if there was anything because this was really early on. I think that's another way that the tour has kind of evolved over time is all of these cities like doing extra things. I honestly don't remember if Chicago did anything, at least that we knew of, that was like I know a lot of places now are doing like trivia or like, things that like community wise can connect Swifties. But Jen, do you remember anything like that?
There were a few like of the tall skyscrapers who had lights specifically for Taylor, like either a color or her name or something like that. But what came to mind for me was more what Soldier Field did because they're a venue. They don't necessarily have to do a lot, but they did the special drinks, the special cups. They all had like Taylor Swift themed names for the drinks and stuff like that. Um, and they had photo ops with people that were there each day. And you could just walk around and like find different photo ops, which was really fun to do. I thought about the people outside the stadium who were tailgating, and I didn't realize that wasn't a thing later on. But yeah, there were people outside the stadium. So Chicago as a whole, like the people of Chicago were very invested, whether the city itself was, I think it was huge in Chicago. The traffic, just like those kind of things.
Hmm.
It was wild. And that also made me think of the bracelets that they had that did the light up. I I know that's like Taylor Swift's tour as a whole, but I imagine it has to take a whole lot of planning, a whole lot of for each stadium, they really have to plan out the seating and everything because what the bracelet does is it shines like a specific color, or does sparkly sort of look. And if you look out into the whole stadium, it's like magical how it works. They'll go through like all the seats and make it do the wave. It's just wild how they do that. So I know that has to take a lot of time from somebody or a lot of people combined. And I think they did something similar for the Rock Tour. I believe we had bracelets like that for the Rock Tour too. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I was gonna mention that. I think that might have been the first stadium tour
Mm.
that she did, and she said something like, I wanted to do these bracelets because I want to feel connected to each of you and see each of you, even though we're so far away, even in the same building, which just again speaks to Taylor's like intentionality.
Yes, yes, exactly. Yeah, that she wants to be able to see a representation of every single person in that stadium. Yeah, absolutely. Were there any memorable interactions that you had with other Swifties during either one of your tour experiences? Jen, could you lead us with this one?
Sure. So first I want to speak on the dynamic between Ashley and me. Because because I think Ashley for the rep tour was really trying to feel it out of how it was gonna be. I remember her saying this to me because we got in and like I think she was ready to, scream and sing her heart out to every lyric. And she wasn't sure like where I was gonna fall in that spectrum of loudness and such. Um, and when I did, I think that was good for her. I'm sure she'll speak on that a little bit too. But so then with the Eras tour, we already knew like how we were gonna be. So we kind of hyped each other up, and then we had a girl next to us who had come by herself. So we just kind of like got to include her and have fun with her. And I was glad that we ended up next to her so that we could just kind of form that little bond throughout the night. And she had so many fun friendship bracelets, and she was just ready to like do that. And she seemed pretty shy, so it was cool that we got to do that. And then yeah, we got to walk around the stadium, as I said, and passed out some friendship bracelets along the way. There were so many people that like you were touching shoulders with people on both sides wherever you were walking, like to the bathroom, to the food. But there were a lot of fun personalities that were ready to give you a friendship bracelet, which was really fun. Even the workers, they were just like great to interact with. We got to talk to them a little bit. Um, and then Ashley and I were on a mission to try to find Taylor because at one point she came out of, what did she come out of? Like
So
a
when
cooler?
early on in her career, when she was like she had much smaller of a following, she would just kind of walk around the stadium with her band and just like chill, like hang out with people. She'd be hiding in like dumpsters or something and like surprise people. So I literally was like looking at trash cans like, Taylor.
I'm like picturing Ashley like head first in a trash can going, Taylor, are you in there? Trying the locks on like closet doors. Sorry.
We were going
Jen,
like behind where the signs were like, back there.
Yeah.
that's so funny. But you're right. She did do that kind of thing, I think, before maybe security, again, popularity and maybe some more security risks or whatnot. But yeah, she did do that. She would surprise her fans.
Yeah. Yeah, I was thinking with this question, I was thinking of the girl next to us. Shout out to that girl. I don't know if she'll ever listen to this, but yeah, I think that was really special. And I agree. I think she was kind of shy. She had like this huge Ziploc bag of friendship bracelets, and we just saw her and we were like, oh my gosh, like trade with us. Like you put so much work into that. So that was the one person who kind of came to mind. And then also the volunteers who were taking pictures at those photo ops. I
Hmm.
asked, I was like, do you get a free ticket for doing this? Did you get paid for doing this? And the answer was no. They just were there to be a friend. So
Wow.
yeah, super
Wow.
cool.
Yeah, how special.
Mhm.
That again just speaks to the kind of community that is created in this fandom, which feels so unique and so wholesome. Like it's just there's a purity and a wholesomeness. And I know this is like Taylor's like tagline, but like girlhood. Like
Mhm.
there's just like a shared girlhood bond uh, that occurs through her music, which is lovely. Speaking of music, let's talk a little bit about a set or a performance that you really enjoyed during the concert. Ashley, can you lead us on this one?
Yeah. So I also want to add something really quick about the previous question too. Jennifer was quite pregnant when we saw Taylor at the rep tour. So
Yep.
I know you talked about like me checking on you, like how in depth are we gonna go? And I remember thinking like, how much does she need to sit down? And how can I like help her in this process? Because do you remember
Hmm.
how many months along you were? Was it like 7?
Yeah, it was like August, right? And I was due in November. So yeah, it was
Yeah.
six.
6 or 7. Yeah. So it wasn't nothing. It wasn't
Hmm.
I had
nothing.
bumps. I definitely had bumps.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I was excited that she was willing to do that with me, even though, that was going to be a really tiring experience for her in that state. So, but yeah, music wise, I mean, when you're singing the bridge in the beginning to Cruel Summer, that's a moment. Um
Yes.
I really kind of regret not going to the 1989 tour. And so the 1989 set, I just really tried to savor because she does a really good job of still like including a lot of the stuff that she did on that tour. And
Hmm.
then the one that I always go to is the rep set because of Don't Blame Me. And I have a video of the lights, the lights that shine. Like I remember pointing out to Jennifer, like, look how high, because we were outside. So it looked like it went up for a mile, like how tall those lights were
Wow.
when she's singing that. So yeah, it's incredible. And then All Too Well is just always one of my favorites. So
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Jen, what about for you?
Yeah, rep has a special place in my heart. I don't know if it's because we went to the rep tour or if it's just because I sometimes have those moments where I just want to, jam to rep. But yeah, each time it was just like, oh, this is just, man. And she can put on a show like enough that people want to go see it in theaters, even though you can't see her in person. Like she is capable
Oh
of
yeah.
that kind of show.
Oh yeah.
So just everything was amazing. I loved how they had like the blocks that had her in them, and you could see all the different eras of her outfits and everything. And she had a house for the man, I think it was, and she
Hmm.
had a different house that she was on top of for the Folklore Evermore era. It was just wild. But yeah, I mean, I would say Rep and probably Midnight
Hmm.
would be my favorite of the show.
Yeah, absolutely stunning. Yeah, she really is in a league of her own as a performer, isn't she?
Mm.
Yeah, absolutely. So Jen, if we could kind of like dive into surprise songs, could you please share with our listeners what were your surprise songs? And then I'd love to hear your reactions. And then if you think there was maybe a meaning or a message being sent in the songs that she chose, yeah, just share with us your thoughts.
Sure. So, our first one, we had a surprise guest who was Maren Morris, and so she came out, and that was a fun surprise. And they did "You All Over Me," so that was pretty cool. I personally am not as familiar with her or that song, to be honest with you, but Ashley was jamming, and I was happy for her. But then she did "I Don't Want to Live Forever," and boy, Taylor must have been going through some stuff that weekend, because if you go on YouTube and you look up her, like that, our show of that became kind of viral online because she was clearly crying during that performance and she was in her feels, which made it, of course, more for all of us. Like,
Mm-hmm.
man, it was a lot.
Wow. Wow. Yeah. Ashley, thoughts?
Yeah, Jen and I both kind of said, she appeared to be in her feels
Mm-hmm.
quite a bit during the whole performance, but especially during that song. I think, knowing now now that TTPD has come out, knowing now some of the things that she may have been going through, I think that was a significant weekend for her. I wouldn't be surprised if that was one of the inspiration weekends for I Can Do It With a Broken Heart,
Mm-hmm.
because it was very clear that she's an incredible performer and always professional, and we did not miss out at all, but you could tell that she just had a heavy heart that week.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah. Yeah. And I would love to hear, like, I mean, just what are your thoughts are around watching an artist like Taylor uh, be so transparent with her emotions and what that says about her connection to her art?
yeah, I I think vulnerability and authenticity when it comes to performing are probably really difficult, but for Taylor, because she has these songs that she's written about her life, I have to
Mm-hmm.
imagine that some of those memories come up and then are applied to things that she's going through present day. So I think it's inspirational to see somebody that powerful and that famous to be
Mm-hmm.
authentic with her emotions.
Mm-hmm.
As a Swiftie and somebody who like loves Taylor, from afar, I just felt for her that week. I just after leaving there, I wanted to give her a hug. And
Mm-hmm.
I
Oh,
remember thinking
yeah.
like this is such an accomplishment to go through 3.5 hours of singing from your journals.
Yeah.
And then knowing that you're going through a breakup and clearly additional things based on
Mm-hmm.
TTPD, um, I'm impressed, and I also just like wanted to care for her.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Sure. Yeah. Jen, any thoughts to add or?
Yeah, about the same. And the fact that she was doing it because she added on a show, I think, in Chicago. So she did it 3 days in a row, I think,
Hmm.
3 hour performances. And
Mm-hmm.
and with that amount that she was going through personally, and then still showing up for the fans. And yeah, I give her a lot of kudos for all that.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Well, thank you both so much for sharing your thoughts. It was especially special for me to hear the compare contrast between Rep and uh, the Eras tour. And I just really enjoyed hearing both of your experiences. And to our listeners, I hope you have as well. Thank you for joining us on this episode. If you have any questions or thoughts that you'd like to email us, please do so. We would love to hear from you. DM us, comment on YouTube, send us an email. We'd love to hear. Uh, Ashley and I are just two scrappy therapists figuring out how to podcast, and we just had so much fun on today's episode. We hope you did as well. Thank you so much for joining us.